Muhammad Ali faced countless opponents throughout his legendary career, but none of them surprised him quite like Sean Connery. In the spring of 1966, while preparing for his rematch against Henry Cooper in London, Ali encountered a familiar face at the training gym, and what he assumed would be an ordinary day turned into one of the most unexpected moments of his entire life. What started as Ali's playful challenge to James Bond quickly became something much more serious when Connery's response revealed a past that had nothing to do with Hollywood glamour and everything to do with survival on the roughest streets of Edinburgh. That day in London, two legends would discover something remarkable about each other that would bind them together for the rest of their lives. If you find stories like this fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more untold encounters between the world's greatest legends. Spring 1966. The Noble Art Boxing Gym in London was not a glamorous place. It catered to serious fighters who valued hard work over appearances, where the sound of leather hitting leather echoed off bare walls and the smell of sweat and determination filled the air. This was where Muhammad Ali had come to prepare for his rematch against Henry Cooper, the British heavyweight who had knocked him down in their first encounter 3 years earlier. Ali was 24 years old, undefeated, and utterly convinced that no man alive could beat him in a fair fight. That confidence extended well beyond professional boxing. Ali genuinely believed he could handle anyone, anywhere, under any circumstances. His mouth was as quick as his hands, and he never missed an opportunity to entertain a crowd or challenge someone who caught his attention. On this particular day in May, Ali was holding court as only he could, his voice filling the space while everyone present was drawn to his magnetic personality. He shadowboxed between interviews, performed his famous shuffle, and declared himself the greatest. To anyone who would listen, the heavyweight champion was in his element, surrounded by reporters, trainers, and boxing enthusiasts who hung on his every word. Sean Connery had also come to the Noble Art Gym that day, though for entirely different reasons. He had just finished the exhausting production of Thunderball, the fourth James Bond film, and had come to the gym for conditioning work to maintain the physical fitness that had become essential to his career. At 35, Connery was at the peak of his fame as the world's most famous secret agent, but few people knew that his relationship with physical fitness and combat skills went far deeper than anything required for movie roles. When Ali spotted the familiar figure working quietly in the corner, his eyes lit up with mischievous opportunity. Here was James Bond himself, the suave, sophisticated spy who had captivated audiences worldwide. What better target for one of Ali's famous challenges? Ali's voice rang out across the gym floor like thunder in a canyon. "Hey Bond," he called out, his voice carrying that familiar Louisville accent mixed with supreme confidence. "The great James Bond is here. Can you fight a real champion? Can you handle a real man?" The gym fell completely silent. Every head turned toward the two celebrities, sensing that something extraordinary was about to unfold. Reporters reached for their notebooks, trainers stopped what they were doing, and even the rhythmic sound of heavy bags being worked ceased as everyone focused on this unexpected confrontation. Connery stopped his workout and turned to face Ali. There was no fear in his expression, no intimidation, no eagerness to please. There was only calm assessment. The look of a man measuring a potential opponent with eyes that had seen more than most people could imagine. Everyone expected Connery to laugh off the challenge, perhaps make a witty comment about being an actor not a fighter, and gracefully decline Ali's invitation. After all, this was James Bond the character challenging Muhammad Ali the champion. It should have been nothing more than an amusing celebrity encounter. Instead, Sean Connery did something that left everyone in the gym stunned. He began walking toward the ring without saying a single word. There was something in the way he moved that immediately caught Ali's attention. This wasn't the hesitant approach of someone playing along with a joke. This was the purposeful stride of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Connery's shoulders were relaxed but ready, his footwork was balanced and sure, and his eyes never left Ali's face as he approached. Ali's confident smile began to falter slightly. This wasn't going the way he had expected. Connery reached the ring area and began pulling on sparring gloves with the practiced efficiency of someone who had done this countless times before. He checked the laces, tested his grip, and began warming up in his corner with movements that were far too smooth and natural for someone who was just playing along with a celebrity stunt. "Wait a minute." Ali thought to himself, his competitive instincts beginning to override his playful intentions. This Scottish actor is actually going through with this. The heavyweight champion's demeanor shifted almost instantly. If someone was foolish enough to challenge him seriously, he would teach them a lesson they would never forget. Ali began loosening up, rolling his shoulders, and shadowboxing as he studied his unexpected opponent. The two men met in the center of the ring, and the contrast was striking. Ali stood several inches taller with a significant reach advantage and the lean, powerful build of a heavyweight champion in his prime. By all objective measures, this should not have been a contest at all. Ali began with his usual style, bouncing on his feet like a dancer, testing his opponent with light jabs while talking constantly. He was playing with Connery, showing off for the crowd that had gathered around the ring, expecting to demonstrate the vast difference between a movie star and a real fighter. "Come on, Bond," Ali taunted, throwing lazy jabs that he expected would overwhelm his opponent immediately. "Show me some of those secret agent moves. Where's your fancy gadgets now?" But something happened in those first exchanges that changed the entire dynamic of the encounter. Connery did not react like a frightened amateur or an actor playing a role. His head movement was sharp and economical, slipping Ali's jabs with practiced ease. His footwork was solid and purposeful, keeping him at angles that made Ali work harder than expected. And when Ali extended himself too much on one combination, Connery countered with a left hook that whistled past the champion's chin by mere inches. The sound of that punch cutting through the air was different from anything Ali had expected. This wasn't the wild swing of an amateur hoping to get lucky. This was the precise, powerful punch of someone who knew exactly what he was doing. Ali's eyes changed in that moment. The playful amusement disappeared completely, replaced by something much more serious and focused. He was facing someone who actually knew how to box, far beyond anything he had anticipated from a Hollywood actor. What the hell? Ali thought, his mind racing as he processed what he was experiencing. This man can actually fight. For the next several minutes, the two men engaged in one of the most unusual boxing exhibitions ever witnessed. What struck everyone watching was how Connery carried himself in the ring. There was no panic, no desperate flailing, no movie-style fighting. He fought with the patience and intelligence of someone who had learned his skills in places where losing meant more than just embarrassment. Connery made Ali work for every clean shot. His defense was technically sound, his counters were well timed, and occasionally, when openings presented themselves, he threw punches that carried real authority and genuine threat. Ali found himself having to use actual technique and strategy rather than simply overwhelming an overmatched opponent. This wasn't the showcase he had planned. This was becoming a real fight with someone who clearly belonged in a boxing ring. As the sparring continued, Ali's respect for his opponent grew with each exchange. Connery's movements spoke of years of training, real experience, and the kind of toughness that couldn't be learned from acting coaches or stunt coordinators. Finally, after what felt like an eternity but was probably only 5 or 6 minutes, both men stepped back and touched gloves in the traditional sign of respect between fighters. Ali was breathing harder than he had expected. More importantly, he was completely speechless, something that almost never happened to the most talkative athlete in the world. For several moments, Muhammad Ali just stared at Sean Connery, trying to process what had just occurred. Finally, he found his voice, though it came out different than usual, less braggadocious, more genuinely curious and respectful. "Man," Ali said slowly, wrapping his arm around Connery's shoulder as they stood in the center of the ring. "This man can fight. For real. Where did James Bond learn to throw punches like that?" Connery smiled for the first time since entering the ring, and when he spoke, his thick Scottish accent carried traces of something much harder and more authentic than anything Hollywood had ever captured. "Edinburgh teaches you a lot of things," he replied simply. That response opened the door to a conversation that would last for hours and establish a friendship that would endure for decades. As they sat together after their sparring session, Connery began to share the story that explained everything Ali had just experienced. Sean Connery, born Thomas Sean Connery, had not always been the sophisticated international movie star the world knew. He had come from Fountainbridge, one of Edinburgh's poorest neighborhoods, during the darkest days of the Great Depression. His father worked as a factory laborer and truck driver, barely earning enough to keep food on the table. His mother cleaned houses for wealthy families to supplement their meager income. Young Tommy, as everyone called him, understood poverty before he understood anything else in life. At age 9, he took his first job delivering milk before school, waking up at dawn to push heavy carts through foggy streets while other children slept in warm beds. By 13, school had become secondary to survival, and he found himself working multiple jobs: polishing coffins at a funeral home, cleaning printing presses, working as a lifeguard, and laboring in steel factories where the heat could break a grown man's spirit. But Fountainbridge taught Tommy something no school ever could. The neighborhood was rough, filled with gangs and desperate men who would fight over the smallest perceived insult. If you wanted to survive there, you had to know how to defend yourself with your fists, and you had to do it well. Tommy learned this lesson early and exceptionally well. By his teenage years, his reputation in Fountainbridge had grown among those who knew the streets. He was no longer just another poor kid trying to survive. He had become someone the local troublemakers learned to avoid. His fighting skills eventually caught the attention of a local boxing trainer who saw raw potential that couldn't be ignored. Tommy began training at a small gym, learning proper technique, footwork, and the discipline that separates street brawlers from real boxers. He competed in amateur tournaments across Scotland, and those who watched him fight noticed something special. He had power in both hands, exceptional timing, and a chin that seemed made of iron. When Tommy turned 16, he joined the Royal Navy. The military gave him structure, travel, and 2 tattoos that would stay with him forever. One reading, "Scotland Forever," the other simply, "Mom and Dad." Those tattoos told you everything about what mattered most to Tommy Connery. However, his naval career ended when he was 19, medically discharged due to stomach ulcers. He returned to Edinburgh with no clear path forward, no education beyond basic schooling, and no connections that could open doors to a better life. What happened next showed exactly who Tommy Connery really was beneath the circumstances of his birth. Instead of accepting defeat, he refused to let his situation define his future. He took whatever work he could find, no matter how difficult: bricklayer, lifeguard, artist's model. His physique had developed remarkably thanks to boxing training and years of physical labor. In 1953, Tommy entered the Mr. Universe competition in London, finishing third in the tall man's division. At that competition, he met bodybuilders who worked in theater, and they told him about auditions for South Pacific. Tommy had never acted before, had no formal training, and spoke with such a thick Scottish accent that many could barely understand him. But he auditioned anyway, and somehow got a part in the chorus. The theater bug had bitten him, and it would never let go. But even as his acting career began to develop, Tommy never abandoned his fighting skills. During the late 1950s, he worked as a bouncer at various nightclubs in London and Edinburgh. The job was dangerous, requiring him to handle violent situations regularly, but Tommy thrived in this environment. His boxing training made him more than capable of handling troublemakers. There was one incident from this period that became legendary. In 1958, while filming Another Time, Another Place, Connery faced a situation that would have terrified most men. His co-star was Lana Turner, one of Hollywood's biggest actresses, and she was dating Johnny Stumpanato, a man connected to organized crime in Los Angeles. Stumpanato became jealous of the scenes Turner shared with the young Scottish actor and showed up on set one day with threatening intentions toward Connery. What happened next showed exactly who Tommy Connery really was beneath the growing fame. Instead of backing down or calling for security, Connery confronted Stumpanato directly and put him on the ground with a single devastating punch. Stumpanato left the set humiliated, and Connery earned a reputation in Hollywood that had nothing to do with acting. He was someone you did not threaten ever. By 1962, Tommy had officially become Sean Connery when producers Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman cast him as James Bond in Dr. No. They had considered dozens of candidates, many more famous than the working-class Scot from Edinburgh. But when Connery walked into his audition, something magical happened. The producers watched him leave and noticed how he moved. Like a cat. Like someone always aware of his surroundings. Like someone who could handle himself in any dangerous situation. That physicality was exactly what they were looking for in their secret agent, and it came from a very real place. The confidence Connery projected wasn't acting. It was the confidence of a man who had survived Edinburgh's streets, who had fought real opponents, who had stared down genuine threats without flinching. As Connery finished sharing his story with Ali that afternoon in London, the heavyweight champion sat in stunned silence for the second time that day. Everything he had experienced in the ring suddenly made perfect sense. This wasn't a Hollywood actor pretending to be tough. This was a street fighter from Edinburgh who happened to have become a movie star. "I'll be damned," Ali said finally. "No wonder you move like that. You learned to fight for real." "Eh," Connery replied. "And you're every bit as good as they say you are. Maybe better." That afternoon marked the beginning of a friendship that would last 30 years, forged in mutual respect and shared understanding of what it meant to fight for survival and success in very different arenas. Both men discovered that despite coming from completely different backgrounds, countries, and professions, they shared fundamental values that transcended all those differences. Both believed in standing up for themselves and others without hesitation. Both refused to let society define their limits or tell them what they could not achieve. Both had maintained their core identities despite the transformative pressures of fame and success. In the years that followed, they stayed in touch through phone calls, letters, and occasional meetings. When Ali faced his greatest challenges, including his controversial refusal to serve in Vietnam and the boxing ban that followed, Connery publicly supported his right to follow his conscience. That loyalty meant everything to Ali, who never forgot those who stood by him during his darkest period. Ali often told the story of their sparring session in interviews, always with genuine admiration and respect. "This man could have been a professional fighter," Ali would say. "I am not joking when I tell you that he threw punches that could actually hurt you if they landed clean. And most importantly, he was not scared of me at all. Not even a little bit." That tells you everything about who Sean Connery really is as a person and as a man. The two men exchanged valuable lessons during their time together that day. Ali showed Connery some of his famous footwork and movement techniques. Connery shared stories of Edinburgh street fighting, where there were no referees, no rules, and no second chances. Both came away with deeper understanding of what it truly means to be a warrior, whether in a boxing ring or in life. Years later, when Ali's battle with Parkinson's disease became publicly known, Connery was among those who offered private support and encouragement. When Ali lit the Olympic torch at the 1996 Atlanta Games, his hands trembling but his spirit unbroken, Connery watched with tears in his eyes, later telling friends that moment captured everything he admired about Ali. The refusal to hide from difficulty, the courage to stand before the world in vulnerability. Muhammad Ali passed away on June 3, 2016, and the world mourned a true icon. Sean Connery sent a private message to Ali's family that has never been publicly released. Connery himself passed away on October 30, 2020, at age 90. In the tributes that followed, many focused on his film career, but those who truly knew him understood that Sean Connery was always much more than an actor. He was a survivor, a fighter, and a man who never forgot the streets that shaped him. The story of Ali and Connery is ultimately about authenticity and the recognition of genuine character beneath surface appearances. When these two men met in that London gym, they recognized something essential in each other: the fire of authentic selfhood that cannot be faked, cannot be bought, and cannot be taught. Muhammad Ali had jokingly asked James Bond to fight, expecting to entertain himself and the gym crowd with a brief demonstration of the difference between real fighting and movie fighting. What he discovered instead was a kindred spirit who had earned every success through struggle, sacrifice, and the kind of toughness that comes only from surviving in the real world. That day, Ali learned that sometimes the most unexpected people carry the deepest strength, and that respect must be earned through authentic experience rather than assumed based on appearances. Sean Connery, meanwhile, gained the respect of arguably the greatest fighter who ever lived. Validation that his journey from the poverty of Fountainbridge to the heights of Hollywood success had never compromised the fundamental toughness that defined him. Their sparring session lasted only minutes, but the mutual respect it generated lasted for the rest of their lives. In a world often divided by superficial differences, two legends found common ground in the most fundamental way possible. By testing each other's character and discovering that beneath the fame, the wealth, and the public personas, they were both warriors who had fought their way to greatness and never forgotten where they came from. The greatest victory that day belonged to neither man individually, but to both of them together. proof that authentic respect transcends all boundaries when it's built on genuine understanding and shared values that go deeper than any surface differences could ever reach.